Hello, welcome to GeoBytes, your daily roundup of news from geospatial industry. I'm your host Bhanu. For the next 15 minutes, I will bring you the news of the top developments across projects, products, policies and business. We will also be focusing on the energy sector today, but before that, here's the top news for the day. Scientists from the US Geological Survey USGS have discovered that the northern Alaska coast is witnessing some of the highest shoreline erosion rates in the world. An analysis of over half a century of shoreline change data has revealed that the coast is retreating by more than 1 meter in a year. In the most extreme case along the Arctic coast of Alaska, more than 18.6 meters of the beach eroded in 1 year. Acting Director of USGS, Suzette Kimball, is alarmed by these findings. Suzette says that this coastal erosion is threatening native Alaskan villages, sensitive ecosystems, energy and defense-related infrastructure, and large tracts of federally managed land. The researchers used historical data sources from the 40s and 2000s for this study. These included topographic sheets, maps, and aerial photographs. Modern data sets like satellite imagery and LiDAR were also digitized for processing in the USGS Digital Shoreline Analysis System. Shoreline changes at more than 26,000 locations were analyzed for this purpose. Dr. Bruce Richmond of the USGS points out that a comprehensive report like this is vital to guide managed response to sea level rise and storm impact. Twitter users, however, don't feel the need to worry. Jay Stein from Texas says, "Let's just blame it on climate change or global warming or whatever and move along." User Longer Left Leg from Quebec exclaims, "Someone quick, for the love of God, let's ban the ocean and the wind. Oh yeah, let's put a carbon tax in place too. That will fix it." 3D measurement and imaging technology provider Faro Technologies announced the release of CAM2 Measure 10.5, its latest software for the Faro Arm, Faro Scan Arm, and Faro Laser Tracker. The new release comes with notable advancements to geometric dimensioning and tolerancing functionality, providing users with streamlined analysis and visual reporting. Workflow efficiencies can be maximized by automating repeat inspection. Moreover, users will now be able to collect over 20 times more data while maintaining accelerated processing speed. Dialmo USA has launched a GIS web portal for the state of Ohio. It is derived from publicly available LiDAR and GIS datasets. The portal provides easy access to data, displays them in 3D, and makes downloading or measuring the data convenient. Dialmo's server technology allows the visualization of aerial, mobile and terrestrial LiDAR data and orthophotos using web mapping services. The original LiDAR point cloud data can be represented in different styles based on height, intensity, RGB or classification. Texas-based ThinkGeo has released a new version of MapSuite, which is packed with aerial imagery for World Map Kit Online. The World Map Kit Online is a cloud-based map service which offers detailed street, aerial, and hybrid maps of the globe that applications can consume directly over the internet. It includes a complete set of GIS spatial data and is updated multiple times every day. Version 9.0 also adds Google Traffic and Street View to the MapSuite web edition. Colorado's Blue Star GPS has announced plans to release GPS and GNSS options in a rugged, lightweight, and low-cost package. Blue Star GPS is designed with sub-meter mapping and data collection performance specifications. It increases accuracy by utilizing S-bas corrections, including 3-channel and parallel tracking S-band operated by the Federal Aviation Administration, the European Geostationary Navigation Overlay Service, the Multifunctional Satellite Augmentation System, and the GPS-aided Geo-Augmented Navigation System. Moreover, the receiver is able to maintain sub-meter accuracy for up to 40 minutes after the loss of a differential correction source signal. Moving on, from Australia, we are hearing about a new browser-based 3D geospatial data gateway called 4D Mapper. It allows for powerful cloud processing, fusion of multi-source content, and streaming of massive data files between unlimited users on their browsers. 4D Mapper doesn't require any local pre-processed input and accepts all raw geospatial data directly. Users can group data for visual access and delivery. By sending a URL, unlimited multiple recipients have immediate access to this data, and they don't need to have any local storage or specialized software for that. In the annual meeting of the World Heritage Committee in Germany, UNESCO and the UN Institute for Training and Research signed an agreement to protect cultural and natural heritage sites with latest geospatial technology. The strategic partnership will use satellite imagery while dealing with areas affected by conflict or natural disasters. Other technologies that may be harnessed include the use of crowdsourcing app UN Assign, which was successfully applied following the recent Nepal earthquake. Drones will also be used both for general recording purposes and for detailed damage assessments of buildings and other infrastructure. We will now slip into a short break, but when we return, we will take a look at the energy sector. Welcome back. 2 years ago, California had mandated its utilities to integrate solar PV, electric vehicle chargers, building energy management systems, and other distributed energy resources into their distribution resource plans, DRPs. Last week, Southern California Edison filed its DRP with the California Public Utilities Commission. As part of its proposed grid modernization investments, SCE is proposing to develop new software tools to do geospatial forecasting. Additionally, SCE has said that future enhancements in its GIS system will support improved efficiency of data validation efforts attributed to modeling each distribution circuit. Also from California, UC Davis Utilities has undertaken an energy load disaggregation project that combines research, operations, and public-facing mobile and web applications. The team is aggregating and analyzing data from a geographic information system, an asset management system, an enterprise financial system for invoicing, and a SCADA system. OSI's SOFT's PI system is acting as the umbrella system binding data from all these systems together for high resolution analysis. Case uses for disaggregation include management of electric car charging stations and garage lighting systems. California-based microgrid electricity provider PowerHive's subsidiary has become the first private utility in Kenya's history to be licensed to sell electricity to the public. PowerHive East Africa uses Site Wizard for analysis, reconnaissance, and mapping, or SWARM, to identify the markets suitable for microgrids. It looks at satellite imagery and other spatial data to identify which locations would generate the most power. The company's cloud-based software platform Honeycomb automates account management tasks, remotely monitors and controls microgrid operations, and runs real-time data analytics. Also from Africa, the World Bank's Renewable Energy Resource Mapping Initiative has identified that Tanzania has immense solar and wind power potential. The results were based on global datasets and satellite analysis, which involved 6 months of intensive number crunching by specialist wind and solar teams supported by the World Bank's Energy Sector Management Assistance Program. Based on these findings, the Tanzania Electric Supply Company will place ground-based solar and wind measuring stations in 30 locations around the country. A power distribution company in Colombia called Enreca has revealed its plans to use DTEX sensor suite to wirelessly monitor technical and non-technical energy losses. Enreca is currently losing 13% of the total energy distributed, and DTEX aimed to bring that number down to 3%. The DTEX system includes the creation of a GIS grid database, which is incorporated into the utility's outage management system. The system allows the utility to instantly view, identify, quantify, and prioritize distribution losses throughout their grid. The United Kingdom's national grid has completed tunneling of its ambitious London Power Tunnels project, which aims to help the country's capital keep up with rising electricity demand. Let us now apprise you with the technologies the power transmission network used in the project. Like a Geosystem's NOVA MS-50 multistation was used to scan the tunnels, and Amberg Technologies' TMS tunnel scan software processed the data generated. It should be noted that the NOVA MS-50 combines with scanning, total station imaging, and GNSS positioning in one instrument. The TMS software allows for exact surveying of a wide array of critical aspects such as the tunnel profile and complete analysis and documentation of the tunnel. That's all we have for you in GeoBytes today. Find us on www.geobiz.com and follow GeoBuiz on Twitter. We will be back shortly with GeoBuiz exclusive. Stay tuned.
Once again, Trimble is leading the way in positioning technology with the new Trimble R8S GNSS receiver. An entirely new way to look at receiver possibilities. Simply choose the configuration and features you require today. Then, add features as you need them tomorrow. It's the ultimate in scalability. With this innovative receiver, you tailor your system to your job, to the way you work. Choose the level of configuration that suits your needs. As your requirements change, the Trimble R8S can adapt. You simply add functionality whenever you want it. Each Trimble R8S comes standard with integrated Maxwell 6 chips, Trimble 360 tracking technology, and more, all to keep you productive and expand the reach of your GNSS system. Plus, it offers our exclusive web UI for remote monitoring and the new Trimble DL Android app for GNSS data logging. And the Trimble R8S maximizes productivity by easily integrating with the Trimble S-Series total stations and our innovative V10 imaging rover. For ultimate field efficiency, combine the Trimble R8S receiver with a Trimble controller and the intuitive Trimble Access Field software. Trust Trimble Business Center to help you edit, process, and adjust your data. It's the kind of solution you have come to expect from Trimble. We've been setting the standard in positioning technology for more than 30 years. See how we're raising the bar again with the Trimble R8S GNSS receiver.
Can you tell us a little bit about Geo and what it is that you do in the organization?
We have a lot of obviously formidable competitors in the mapping space.
But saying human geo, I was like perplexed. Why the name human to the geospatial angle?
If we think about land, I mean, land is a key core to prosperity.
Thank you, Hugo, for speaking with GeoBuiz and Geospatial World. Thank you, Joseph, for speaking with GeoBuiz and Geospatial World. You are the head of the Programming, Planning and Coordination Service of Earth Observation Programs. And I would like to understand what is the mandate of your division and how ESA and the Earth Observation Programs, ESA is taking forward its Earth Observation Programs.
Thank you. What is the mandate? As the name indicates, program planning and coordination. So my job and the job of my people in my group really is to define the future programs of Earth observation in the European Space Agency. Mm-hmm. Earth observation within ESA is the biggest directorate. We have about almost one third of the budget and therefore of the activities. Mm-hmm. So it is a very fast growing activity and a very fast growing program. The reason being that geospatial information is becoming more and more important because it is satellites at the use of people, and therefore the programs which we define are really relevant to everyone, and which is also proof of the increase of confidence of our member states in order to invest in these programs. So my job really is to define the future programs, to negotiate with governments what contributions they can make to the ESA Earth observation programs, to define the content, of course, negotiate their contributions, and hopefully being in a good position to really have a strong program to be implemented with our member states, with industry, and with international partners.
What are the flagship programs for ESA at this point?
The flagship programs, we in the Earth Observation Directorate of ESA, we have three main lines of programs, three pillars as I call them. One is the meteorology satellites. There we have a very strong cooperation with EUMETSAT, for which we develop the satellites which they define and which they also operate. The second pillar is the science missions, where we have a number of so-called Earth Explorer satellites, which are at the cutting edge of technology, defining new or answering burning questions of science to society, but also engaging the latest technology and really pushing the envelope of technology in order to implement missions, satellites, which are extremely challenging from a technology point of view as well. And the third pillar is Copernicus, which was discussed a lot at the Geospatial Forum here, which is really building up a program of Earth observation satellites, which is very operational, which delivers very operational observations for a number of policies and applications which are good for everyone. These are covering agriculture, forestry, marine observations, climate change observations, disaster management, a number of disciplines which can be served with these observations. And this is really a completely, I would say, a fully operational program using satellite data together with measurements from the air, the oceans, and over land, so-called in situ measurements, in order to provide services, information services, to politicians, to private people, to commercial businesses, which are useful to everyone. And this really is, I would say, the latest and newest growing domain within our directorate, which will provide quite a change in the way how Earth observation is being used by citizens globally.
Copernicus is quite an ambitious program and a long-term program. Can you give us more details about what exactly the program constitutes?
Copernicus is indeed the most ambitious Earth observation program in the world, yes. And I really underline in the world. It is having a family of 6 series of satellites which are measuring in various domains using different sensors and technologies to measure the various parameters which I just mentioned before for agriculture, forestry, the oceans, the atmosphere, and so on. And it really is a game changer in the sense that it is using these observations and providing it for free. These data of these sentinels are free of charge, publicly available for everyone, to citizens and decision makers. And this is quite an ambitious program. In fact, it is very well, it's very attractive and very well received by other partners, our friends and colleagues in the United States, in Australia, in South Africa, in Japan, in China, and so on, are really very keen in collaborating with us on Copernicus in order to also get access to this data in a more privileged way. And this is something which ESA, together with the European Union, is really developing and implementing. I should probably say that so far we have only launched the first satellite. There are 20 satellites or instruments to come in the next 10 years. So in order to build up the whole constellation, and once it's being built up, it really provides, as I said before, the most ambitious Earth observation program in the world. But we are at the very early stage in building up this series of observation capabilities.
All these satellites are large satellites or these smaller satellites, because the trend worldwide is to go for smaller satellites. So what does Copernicus believe in?
Copernicus, today, at least the Sentinel satellites, are in the category of what I would call medium-sized to larger satellites. Mm-hmm. They are not the small satellites of 10 kilos, 20 kilos, 50 kilos, or the likes, which are also being built up at the moment. What Copernicus is also doing is, apart from building its own Sentinel satellites, it is also buying data or procuring data from other providers in order to complement the data from the Sentinels. And there we have agreements or we have procurements.
What kind of data is it buying?
It is complementary data which are either bought from commercial sources in America, in Europe, at a very high resolution range, for example, 1 meter and below, or other data which are provided by different agencies in order to increase the observation frequency of the Sentinel satellites. I should probably say that, for example, take Sentinel-2, which we are expecting to launch very soon. With 2 satellites in orbit, we will have 5 days global coverage of the whole Earth, but still it is 5 days at the equator. It is a bit higher, so the frequency is higher in mid-latitudes and of course towards polar regions. But still it is a few days until the whole globe is covered. In order to increase this observation frequency, we will take also other data which are on the market or which are available from American partners, from Japanese partners, from other partners of European member states, just to be sure that whenever there's a need for some data, observations, that we can get them. And there we have a procurement scheme in place with about 30 different agencies or partners from whom we procure additional data in addition to the Sentinel observations. So this is really a network of satellite observations which we are using, basically using the best possible sources on the market in order to get the best possible information to the decision makers.
I also understand that Copernicus is not just the Earth observation data, but you're collecting a lot of airborne and also terrestrial data as well. How are you integrating this data from different sources and creating creating data packages or extracting information out of it? How is the output that goes to the public or the consumers?
You're absolutely right. Copernicus is more than just satellites. It's way more. It is in fact a combination of satellite observations with what we call in situ observations, observations made by thermometers, air quality measurement devices, measurements of river runoff levels and so on, and really combine all this information which we can get hold of into information services. In a way, what we're doing with Copernicus is what meteorology is doing since many years very successfully in the meteorology domain. There also you are combining satellite information with meteorological information, measurements of temperatures, pressure, humidity and so on, in order to produce a weather forecast. And the weather forecast is of course the information service that is produced and provided to the public and to specialized services. In Copernicus we do exactly the same, but beyond meteorology, for environmental monitoring, disaster management, security relevant services, climate services, marine services and so on. So the principle is exactly the same, combining all types of observations, converting it into information services, but in other domains, or in domains other than meteorology. And therefore, it really is very comparable, and we learn a lot from meteorology because it works so well for the daily weather forecast. And in future, I hope that Copernicus will provide daily forecasts of air quality, or sea level rise, of parameters that are linked to the quality of the land degradation or land surveys, of urban planning, and so on and so forth. So we really hope that it will, or we expect that it will make a very similar development as meteorology, but for all these other domains.
As I understand, and even GEO believes that the value of data is in its use. So how is Copernicus is also enabling the access and use of this data?
Copernicus has a very free and open data policy, data and information policy. I can tell you we have been fighting very hard to get that. Of course, we have been inspired by the open data policy of Inspire, for example. But in the satellite world, we had very difficult debates 2 to 3 years ago, on whether we should really provide the satellite Sentinel data to everyone for free. You know, the result is that we are providing this data free and open to everyone, but this was not...
How free is free? This free?
Free is free. You log on to a website. The URL is sentinels.europa.
Anyone from across the world?
From across the world, anyone can access this data very freely, very openly. As of today, mid of May 2015, we have more than 1 petabyte of data which have been downloaded from Sentinel-1A alone, which is the first of the Sentinels flying, which was accumulating data since a bit more than half a year now. On the 3rd of October 2014, the data became available and accessible via Internet for everyone. We have a very strong increase of users registering and downloading this data. Anyone, really anyone from any part of the world can log on.
The website being, it's from the Copernicus website?
It's from the Copernicus website. It's sentinels.copernicus.eu. You log on, you register for the first time, you get a username and a password, and once you're registered, you just log on again with your username and password, and then you can download any types of data of any part in the world you want to have for free down on your computer.
Yes, it's a very good sign that it is ESA is making this data available free of cost to everybody. And how do you see, or is there any mechanism you're trying to implement where it is the applications are also enabled. Like for example, mere data doesn't really do much good to anybody. Someone has to either interpret the data, or extract information out of it, or create an application out of it. So how is ESA enabling this mechanism so that there is more innovation in that space?
You're absolutely right. The use of the data is in its use. And this is the biggest challenge, of course, which we face, that these data are really being used by everyone. So what we have been doing within ESA, but also by the European Commission. Within ESA, we have launched some years ago service elements. We call them GMES. Copernicus used to be called GMES. GMES service elements, where we funded the use of these data in certain domains. There have been demonstrator projects, and in order to increase the user base of Copernicus today, of the Sentinels today. This has been an initial investment by ESA. The responsibility for services today within Copernicus is with the European Union, and the European Commission has launched a very significant program to develop these services much wider and much stronger in many more domains. For example, the European Union is spending today about 1 billion euros in order to build up Copernicus services in the 6 service domains of Copernicus, which is land, air, oceans, security, disasters, and climate change. And in these domains, there are tens and tens of individual services which are being built up and funded by the European Commission in order to really make use of the satellite data in combination with in situ measures.
When you say services, can you cite 1 or 2 examples?
Yes, some examples. There are many examples, but let's just pick out a few, maybe one. One example is on the marine side. There we have very successful fully operational services that use satellites and other information to, for example, predict the best ship routes for ship trafficking in order to, first of all, allow safe passage of ships during, say, northern waters where you have icebergs, but also the most economic routes considering wave heights, wave directions, wind, in order to save fuel and therefore save money and time for international ship trafficking. Another example is the emergency service, which is also very operational in case of a disaster. There are unfortunately many of those happening all the time. I take the earthquake in Nepal, the recent earthquake in Nepal as an example. As soon as a disaster occurs, the disaster management service is launching a request to the space agencies to program the satellites to take images of this area where the disaster occurs. Then immediately, because in disasters time is a crucial factor, these data are being merged with all other information available, produced or converted into maps or other necessary information for relief groups and operators in the disaster areas in order to know which roads are still available, which that are not damaged, which bridges are still existing, which airports are still working, and so on, in order to really be able to provide help in a very fast way and to give information that is critical, in this case very often life-saving, in order to minimize the damage of such disasters. So these are 2 examples of very operational products which are being developed within the Copernicus context. But there are many, many others which are equally important and just as good to illustrate the usefulness of a combination of satellite with in situ information in order to produce value for the economy.
The example you cited is a post-disaster response kind of an activity. But unfortunately, most of these disasters, we tend to see that they happen in countries and regions where there is hardly any preparedness. So is ESA and the Copernicus program especially trying to help out the countries or create a mechanisms between countries where you can effectively use the existing data and services so that there is a fair element of preparedness?
When the disaster occurs, it's too late, or it's often too late because the damage is already done and the disaster happens. There are some disasters which cannot be prevented. An earthquake cannot be prevented because the earthquake will happen with or without preparedness. The only thing one can do is to better prepare the population and have risk analysis maps in order to better and faster respond in such cases. But there are other disasters where real preparedness can take place. Take flooding as one example. And the Copernicus services are used to, for example, in the case of flooding, first of all, identify the areas at risk, which are highest at risk in case of very heavy rainfalls or very strong snow melting in the alpine areas. So you can take precautionary measures, for example, to build dams or protection mechanisms in order to minimize the chance of certain villages or settlements being flooded in case of a disaster. And yes, you are absolutely right. Geospatial information is crucial in order to give to decision makers the right information in order to see what has to be done or what could be done in order to minimize the risk of a disaster. So yes, in some cases we can help preventing a disaster. In some cases we cannot prevent the disaster, but if the disaster occurs, we can at least help in getting help as fast as possible to the area which is most affected.
ESA trying to create those kind of partnerships and helping out, reaching out to countries in creating those kind of preparedness services?
Yes, we do. We have a long-standing program, for example, with the World Bank, or the World Bank Group, to be correct, which is really to build up on the basis of demonstration projects to show in developing countries which are most affected by disasters, what can be done in order to minimize the risk of a disaster or to prevent both, to prevent the impact of disasters in the best possible way. So we have, since 2008, about 35 demonstration projects running with the World Bank together in order to show to these countries what can be done. Of course, the challenge is from these demonstration projects to go to the larger scale and see what can be done in a more systematic way, not just to demonstrate it, but really to implement it in an operational phase, to have an operational disaster mitigation system or disaster warning system in place, which of course is a much bigger exercise and goes way beyond the demonstration phase. But yes, we do work with partners like the World Bank, but also other partners in order to achieve that.
One of the issues that came up in the light of Nepal earthquake is about open licensing of remote sensing data. Since Copernicus data is already in the open domain, does this in any way kind of a requirement for this data to have that kind of a licensing, or is something simply accesses and use it?
The raw data, the basic data, for example satellite data, are free and open. So there is no issue of licensing. To be very correct, the license of the data stays with the owner of the data, but every user has a free usage of the license. So this is a bit of a technical term. So the usage of data is free and open. There's no limitation, there's no restriction. These data can be used, they can be reproduced, they can be given to other partners. You can use them to build higher level information, and there's no restriction whatsoever of that kind. So in that sense, the Sentinel data of Copernicus indeed are free and open, fully free and fully open, as they should be in order to help people in disasters, but also for other geospatial demands.
Do you see the returns in that proportion? Or in what proportion? What is the potential of creating jobs out of this program? Has there been any investigation and estimation of the potential?
Indeed there was, and as you mentioned, Copernicus has been funded by our member states through public money. And whenever you ask for money from your member states or your partners, you need to be accountable and you need to explain why you want this money. And in order to have better arguments, a study was done by PricewaterhouseCoopers, for example, where we have been asking them to assess the socioeconomic benefit of investments in Copernicus for the economy at large. And this work has been carried out over 2 years time frame based on a lot of interactions and analysis. And the result is that yes, if the data are free and open, and this is one of the conditions, the economic impact is highest in terms of return to the society. And the estimates of PricewaterhouseCoopers in this case are that €1 invested of taxpayers' money brings up to €10 back into the economy because of better information and better decisions that can be made.
In a time scale?
Time scale is up to 2025, which is 10 years from now. So it's a reasonable time frame, which does assume indeed that Copernicus is being built up. That means the constellation of sentinels is available, and of course the uptake of these data by the society has taken place, which takes some time. But indeed, there is good return on investment, but investment back into the economy. There have also been other estimates of the European Commission, what it means in order for Copernicus to create new jobs. There have been figures presented by the previous Vice President of the European Commission, Mr. Tajani, that predict that about 83,000 jobs, new jobs, will be created based on services and activities that are stimulated or being created directly from Copernicus. So indeed, Copernicus creates jobs and economic growth in also money terms, not only in terms of better information.
That each euro that is being invested into this program is reaping a benefit of 10 euros. That's very wonderful to know. So I think that brings us to the end of the conversation. Thank you so much, Joseph.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.